Hey there, thanks for coming back and joining me for another video. Now we're getting into the topic of objectives. And this is one where I get a lot of questions from students because objectives can be very different from what you see in the textbook. It could be different between your marketing class and your business class. It can be different from a marketing class that's focused on marketing management versus promotion, like we do here in our program at Bellevue College. So we're in the first part of our defining objectives section. We're going to just give an overview of objectives, and then we're going to talk about the first type, which is sales objectives. So let's go ahead and get started. You just watched a number of videos that were talking about research, and I want to really emphasize that before you move forward with doing objectives, you've done some solid research. You have a clear idea, not just some talking points about your client, but really understand what is the problem they're facing and what are you going to be doing for them. So, the first point I'm saying here is just make sure you're pointing to a clear challenge. Because if you don't have that, if you're not really solving a problem, it leads to the question of why are we doing a campaign to begin with? When you are putting together that research and you're creating a deck for your stakeholders, it's important that you figured out what those key insights are. It's not just what you learned, but why are those insights important? The reason I'm re-emphasizing this again before we get started on objectives is if you understand the key learnings, if you understand things that are a challenge for your client or for the consumers that might be interested in the product or service that they offer, it's easier to go ahead and come up with 2 or 3 objectives that will help guide your campaign. So it's really smart to understand this process of objectives and strategy before you go into the research. If you understand this whole process, you know what you're working towards in the end. And I know that sounds very simple and straightforward, but it's amazing how many students will say, I just don't get what you're looking for, I'm confused. This is one of the key learnings we want you to pick up on. Think about what you're trying to achieve with your research as you're doing it. You know that the next step will be to create objectives, so be looking for clues of what do I need to do to serve my client and help them out. And doing so, that will help you figure out how insights can lead to action. Because everything that's going on with the campaign is taking actions. We're going to do a bunch of different promotional tactics, and that will help serve meeting objectives and making a strategy come to life. So, all important aspects that we want to make sure are in a good campaign. Okay, so you thought about research. Now we're thinking about the bigger picture. Before you can define your own objectives, I want you to stop and think about, hey, is there some objectives that might already exist for my client? Are there some company-wide goals, maybe that are broader than just marketing, that exist? Make sure you know what those things are, because it can help shape what you're going to be doing in your campaign. It definitely think about past campaigns that they've done. Or is there some learnings that came out of the past work that might guide what you're going to do this time? Okay, so now that we're going to get started with creating your own objectives. We want to remind you that in this program we're focusing on doing promotion. This is a marketing communications type campaign. And when you're doing a promotional campaign, it's usually a good idea to have probably 3 objectives. One of them should be a sales objective, and probably 2 should be promotional objectives. So in this first part of our objectives videos, we're just going to be talking about the sales one. And this is the one that's probably the most familiar to those of you who've taken Business 101 or other basic business or marketing classes. Sales objectives are focused on the short term. We need to make some money right now. Let's have a sales objective. And any kind of time you're doing marketing, you probably need to have some sales objective, right? You even if you're doing long-term branding stuff, it is smart to be thinking about, money is being put in to make this marketing campaign happen. So how are we going to demonstrate that it provided value by getting some money back, deriving some revenue? That's really important because your non-marketing stakeholders, like the CFO, need to know that money is being well spent. So it's good to always be thinking about a sales objective. Um, you know, one of the nice things about sales goal is they're really clear and straightforward. For that reason, every one of these should be SMART goals, and that basically means they should be specific and measurable. And if you are doing something short term like this, there's no reason you can't figure out a timeline by when you're trying to have this project done. There's no reason you can't articulate a specific goal. We're going to achieve this and by this date. So it's a really important distinction of a sales objective. Usually they're represented in one of four different ways. You can talk about, hey, we want to sell this many units. So that might be for a product that how much it's being sold for is not mattering so much, because those prices, it may be a very inexpensive item, an item that doesn't fluctuate too much from other competitors in the industry, but you just need to know the number of units are increasing or decreasing, because that gives you an understanding of how you're doing in comparison to your competitors. Much more common is measuring by dollars, because it's a language that every business person speaks. We understand this much revenue is coming in. That helps us understand the value of marketing expenditures. Looking at market share makes a lot of sense if you're a really powerful, established company. You don't necessarily need to make so much money today. You just need to make sure that you're holding your market position and that you are dominating against other competitors, or others are not encroaching on your space. Or if you're a startup, you might be losing money right now, but as long as if you're increasing in market share, that shows potential that you are starting to get some traction with consumers, and so you can make money in the future. The fourth one at the bottom is the one that confuses people the most, which is the idea of it's not necessarily a sales goal, but it's a conversion. And the reason I lump it in as a sales objective is because that conversion has a clear financial value. So if I were to say, oh, I want to drive engagement, well, that's kind of vague. That could mean a lot of different things. It doesn't necessarily have a clear financial value. But if I wanted to say, I want to drive a certain number of people to enroll in our loyalty program, well, I could potentially build a predictive model and figure out how much value each person has that is a member of our loyalty program. And it's going to predict future sales. So in that case, because I can associate a financial value with joining that loyalty program, that might be worthwhile. Having somebody opt in to an email subscription to receive newsletters from us, that's something we could probably put a financial value on. So in those cases, they're not tactical objectives. They are sales objectives, because when that conversion happens, it's going to have a financial benefit for us. Here's some quick examples. So I'm making up a pizza store in my head. And if I was thinking about some sales objectives, I could say, okay, I want to increase Patty's Pizza revenue by 10%, from $80,000 to $88,000 by the end of August 2020. So remember how I said it needs to be specific and measurable? And here I'm telling you exactly what we want to do. We're going to do revenue. I want to increase it by 10%. Then I show you where we are today, 80,000, and what 10% is on top of that is 88,000. And I know that I need to do this before the end of August 2020. Having that specific information makes it really helpful to explain the value of what we're doing to non-marketing people. And that's very important when you're trying to spend a lot of money and get buy-in from senior executives. The next one here, increase market share of Patty's Pizza from 3.8 to at least 4.5% by the end of the fiscal year. So this one's looking at the market share. So again, I have an end date, and I'm showing exactly I want to increase from this amount to this amount. The last one is one of those ones, it's this conversion one. So this is not necessarily revenue, but if I can put a basic price on or a value of someone joining our email list, and I definitely can do that, well, then having 600 opt-ins to Patty's Pizza email list in the first 30 days of the campaign means I'm going to be generating revenue possibilities. And so that's a revenue possibility that's important to me. I want 600 of them, probably based upon some research that we've already identified in our research section. And there you go. That helps me move forward with this campaign and find success. Okay, well, we're going to wrap this part 1 up. I hope that you will come back for the next in our series, and we'll talk a little bit about promotional marketing objectives. See you then.